Welcome to today's Diversion Insights Quick Take. I'm Terry Vidals, and today we are diving into a critical aspect of medication diversion auditing that often gets overlooked: cancel or null transactions in an automated dispensing machine, or ADM. If you are seeing an abundance of these in your audit data, it's time to ask more questions. So let's explore why these seemingly innocent transactions might be red flags for diversion activity. Let's start with why cancel or null transactions should concern us. Cancel transactions in an ADM might seem like simple user error, and sometimes they are, but they can actually be indicators of something far more serious. That is tampering. Tampering is the adulteration or attempted adulteration of a product from its originally manufactured form. And according to the FDA's Federal Anti-Tampering Act, this creates a serious risk, and a person may be placed in danger of death or bodily injury. So we're talking about one of the worst diversion schemes possible, depending on how they tamper. One of these tampering incidences can lead to severe patient outcomes, including cases where patients unknowingly become infected with hepatitis C or other pathogens. So when you're investigating patterns of cancellations or returns to your ADM data, here are some critical questions that you need to ask. First, look for patterns. Are there repeated accesses to the same medication compartment in short succession? Are other medications available in the ADM compartment that are actually being accessed while they're in there? This may be hard to narrow down because it could be anything in the pocket. Are there other medications commonly accessed surrounding the canceled transaction? These patterns often reveal systematic attempts to access medications inappropriately. Second, examine the bigger picture. What other medications is the user potentially accessing during the cancellation or return of activities? Specifically, look for cancellations, returns, or stockouts of non-controlled substances that have similar clinical effects, like medications that can cause drowsiness, as these may enable diversion or concurrent controlled substance dispenses. Third, track movement patterns. Where does the mover move around the organization following these types of transactions? Does this movement reflect their normal or expected behavior? Are they moving to supply closets, restrooms, locker rooms, parking lots unexpectedly? Unusual movement patterns often indicate concealment or consumption activities. Obviously, you're going to need cameras or some sort of badge access to really monitor these things. Fourth, investigate physical evidence. Are they accessing medications surrounding potentially suspicious events that are considered look-alike medications? These appear visually the same with respect to packaging, shape, color, size. Also check for reports of compromised medication packages, loose tablets, separated vial tops, vials that don't spin, or ineffective medications in your user's department. If somebody is telling you in a procedural room that the fentanyl doesn't seem to be working like it should, you need to listen. And finally, look at departmental trends. Are there frequent discrepancies in the user's department? Sometimes individual behavior is part of a larger pattern affecting the entire unit. So remember, canceled transactions might seem like simple user error, or it might be something wrong with the ADM, but they can also mask sophisticated diversion schemes. The coordinated approach required by regulations, including facility controls, camera surveillance, physical access controls, frequent inventory checks, exist precisely to catch these subtle indicators before they can escalate to patient harm. When reviewing your ADM data, don't miss those canceled transactions. They are your early warning system. Ask the hard questions, investigate the patterns, and remember that in medication diversion prevention, the details you overlook today could become tomorrow's patient safety crisis. I'm going to give you an example of a canceled transaction case that I ran into. Early on in my time as a diversion mitigation and monitoring specialist, I learned the hard way. There was a nurse that dispensed more than her peers of Norco. And when I brought this to the attention of the nurse manager, the response was often a typical response, and that is, well, this is a floor that uses a lot of Norco, so I'm not surprised, right? I continued to monitor this activity, have conversations with the nurse manager over the span of almost 2 years. Finally, when this particular nurse was literally the highest dispenser in the entire organization, I got the attention of the manager, who finally went to the next step, which I had been suggesting for months, were patient interviews. We were fortunate that the 2 patient interviews that were conducted, it was very clear that the Norco that had been charted had never reached the patient based on the patient's response during those interviews. Going back, hindsight is 2020, I took a look at the canceled transactions, which I had not looked at. And what I found is this particular nurse had a tremendous amount of canceled transactions for Tylenol. I wasn't looking at canceled transactions for non-controlled medications. But when I did, after the patient interviews confirmed that something was up, but yet everything was in order. Everything was documented. Everything was accounted for. In fact, one of the things that concerned me most was the quick turnaround from dispense to administration time. The nurse was always very consistent and very fast and very timely. It was just too much. But what I found in those canceled transactions were that, I forget the percentage, like 85% of this nurse's canceled transactions all involved acetaminophen, which is not normal when you look at people's canceled transactions. So that was some insight into what was going on, and something that I missed early on and had to learn the hard way. Well, that is today's quick take on why ADM canceled transactions matter. Stay vigilant, keep auditing, and I'll see you next time.